Well, kia ora and welcome to you faculty members joining us on this program. Tell us, Sarah, what's it going to look like those 3 weeks that we're together?
Absolutely. So you'll be watching the students go through this program, but you also have the opportunity to be a student yourself. And this is a really important philosophy that we would love to get across to you. And it's really hard for us as staff and faculty to teach something if we don't really embody it ourselves, or we don't really understand it and how it impacts us and our perspective. So I'm really inviting you into this experience as a student as well as faculty to see how you can take this on board and how your perspectives might shift and grow and change. And then, of course, how that will then impact your teaching and how you interact with your students. Yeah.
So what are some of the pedagogical aspects that we're going to be looking at? How are we going to deliver this course?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we are probably both pretty big believers in trying not to stand up and talk too much. But Ron is an amazing storyteller, so actually it's quite lovely to listen to Ron. But we will, as best as we can, try and keep this as interactive as possible. So the way that we are delivering this course is that we have pre-recorded videos like this that you can watch in your own time. And then we also have live interactive sessions. We have guest lecturers from around the world that will bring their perspective in, so it's not just us, because actually this program is all about looking at multiple perspectives. Then we will put you into learning pods. So we have a bigger cohort here, and to create more interaction, more intimacy there, we're going to bring you into smaller learning pods of maybe 3 to 4 faculty, and you'll be able to meet once a week and give each other really great feedback on the projects that you're working on. You'll be able to debrief the material. We also have sessions that are live to debrief what you are experiencing as faculty. And so that could be your own personal exploration into what these concepts mean for you and in your life. And it could also be about debriefing the perspective that you have from a teaching point of view of like, wow, this is what I'm noticing the students go through, and this is the process, and this is what I'm reflecting on about how to teach and how this will impact and show up in my teaching when I start to spread this message out to my students.
So what does the program look like, Sarah? I believe we've got 2 elements to the program, 2 major elements.
Yes, we
What
do.
are you going to talk about?
So my specialty is in sustainability, and Ron is in biculturalism. And so we're going to look at these 2 different perspectives and then where they start to merge in the middle. So one of our foundational holding principles is this idea of place. And place is just so meaningful for all of us. From a sustainability point of view, we could look at it from resources and aesthetically pleasing natural spaces, really important for our well-being. And Ron will look at it from a bicultural perspective, how culturally that connects to land and to whakapapa, which ancestry, which you'll learn later on with Ron. So place is a core theme that we're going to start from. And then we start to work our way down into these 2 different themes. For assessment, we'll be working with project-based learning. And to do that, we're going to invite you to think about a project that you have already done, okay, or already created. And this structure that we're sharing with you right now is the same structure, it's the same assessment that the students will also be going through. So you will be able to understand what the students are also experiencing and debriefing.
So when we introduce this to students, the project that we want them to bring is a project they've been working on with their field of study or the industry that they want to head into. For you, what we want you to think about is something like a lesson plan or a course that you've already taught. So thinking about this from a pedagogy perspective, from a professional practitioner perspective, your project will be something that you have already taught on.
Absolutely.
And when we're looking at these concepts of place and biculturalism, we'll be identifying or unpacking biculturalism insofar as an identity perspective. So cultural identity as it's articulated by place. And in doing that, we'll be looking at different theorists and different theories, but also issues around place naming. What do names mean? How do we understand our situation, our context of place by and through naming? And doing that also, we'll be looking at narrative exploration. So what narratives sit behind that place naming? So when we're looking at the cultural construct of place and naming and identity, in our first week, those will be major themes that we're looking at. So that's what my week one's going to look like. Sarah, what about you? What are you going to be talking about in that first week?
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to be looking at different perspectives, and starting with the perspective that we have towards place and towards landscape, also others' different perspective on sustainability, because there is no one definition, and that links us into some environmental philosophy as well. Then we start to unpack systems thinking, a very, very core, important principle of sustainability, on how everything is interrelated and interconnected. So we have an impact no matter what we do, and we can start to unpack that and what that looks like as we move through the world. And something really great about how our two themes start to interact is that we have a theme for each week. And in the very first week, the theme is self-reflection. So this is where we're asking you to critique your own viewpoints and your baseline of where you are coming in as a starting point, and then later on in the program we're going to go back and look at where you started and perhaps where you've got to in 3 weeks' time.
So in that second week, from the cultural identity and from that cultural constructs perspective, we'll be looking at exactly that, at cultural fields. We'll be looking at some theory involved in cultural fields, but also that idea that we as individuals exist within a cultural construct, but sometimes we occupy different cultural fields. And within this week's learnings, we'll be asking that question of how do we actually interrelate with others? How do we understand our own cultural fields, our own cultural constructs, our own identity as a person within a place? And how does that lead us to interact with others? So how do we define those cultural fields between myself and you? And what's that commonality between us?
Yeah, awesome.
And what are you going to do, Sarah? You want to write on
I'm
the
going to
board?
grab the pen because I think my writing's needed in front. I hope you can see and understand what we're getting across here. You're doing a great job. So the theme that is linking us together, our two perspectives in week 2, is meeting others' needs. Okay, and Ron's just explained that in terms of how we interact with the other. And for me, I'm looking at social sustainability. So sometimes people can think of sustainability just from an environmental point of view, but as humans, we are having an impact and interacting with the environment around us. And so how can we meet the needs and the demands of so many people, you know, vying for resources and vying for their own opinion or perspectives to be perhaps pushed more than others? And how can this move into a place of being more harmonious? We're going to look at things like justice and equity versus equality, and what this means from ethical and social sustainability points of view. And that, understanding all those perspectives, is what was going to help us create this world, that we're trying to move towards. Can you hear that car in the background?
No,
Yeah. Cool. All right.
it's not mine.
Yeah, exactly. What about week 3, Ron? What are you up to in week 3?
Well, after those 2 weeks, it's going to be pretty busy. I might put my feet up and have a break. No, in week three, we're going to be revisiting the project that we first introduced, or we first conceptualised or thought about or brought to the group in week 1. In week 3, we're going to be running through this reflective process here down the middle of biculturalism and sustainability. That meeting place where both of these subjects meet, where there's an interaction, where there's a transformation happening. We want you to revisit your project that you've introduced us to and think to yourself, now that I've had this disruption of these two people in my life, now that I've had this disruption in my practice, what does it mean for me as a professional practitioner when I recontemplate the ideas of sustainability and biculturalism, and what does it mean within this course that I teach? So with this revisioning and this revisiting of your project is building aspects of both of these programs in as they are appropriate for your situation.
Yes.
And you'll be reporting back with all of our colleagues that are online here on what that's going to look like. So we want to build a community of practice, or communities of practice. We're hoping there'll be people that participants that deliver in certain fields, that in certain areas, that can talk and share information so that we can all lift ourselves up, lift each other up, that we can all build these things into our courses in a meaningful, substantive, proactive way.
Yeah, and if I want to run on from that, we're not necessarily the experts here, right? We just have our own perspectives and our own life experience, and we love to share that with you. And we really want to honour the experience and the knowledge that you have coming in. And you'll know this as a teacher yourself, how much you can learn and grow off your students. And that's really the environment that we want to create, of let's learn, let's share, you know, and there'll be lots of peer feedback going on.
Yep. Yeah. We're looking at essentially 3 outcomes from this faculty program. The first is that endpoint that we've just talked about, that we as professional practitioners within the education industry, within post-secondary education, can share knowledge together and assist each other in embedding more around sustainability and biculturalism into the courses that we teach. That's number 1. Number 2, we actually want to build a new community of practice that will build on what we're doing here. So as Sarah just said, we're not the experts. We've just got a bunch of stories to tell. And we want to join all of our stories and all of our knowledge together so that we collaboratively together can actually build a program, build on what we're doing here. This isn't the end, This is just the start of our journey as a community of practice. And the third thing that we want to do is to build what's known as a COIL program, Collaborative Online International Learning Program, where we can all come together at different points in time. So when you have your programs that you deliver on within your own contexts, you can draw on the knowledge that we've all brought in together locally. When we look at building a program out that will inform more of our colleagues internationally, we can do that on a broader perspective. But with the COIL, hopefully, after interacting with this program, we can all collaboratively teach together. So we want to remove ourselves from the front of the camera and put you there. We want to build a collaborative online international learning environment where participants into these courses can hear our voices, can hear our different perspectives, and enrich those communities that we teach in, those communities that we live in. So it's pretty lofty stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and we're really in a process of building that trust and building that relationship, and just going all the way back to the start of what I was explaining, of really embodying this for ourselves You know, how can we be the most sustainable practitioners we can be? How can we be really culturally aware and really responsive, even when there's unconscious bias and we don't even know we're doing something that's culturally inappropriate? So this is such a great opportunity for self-reflection, for professional growth and networking and opportunity. Just want to really welcome you into this program and say thank you so much for being here. We're so blessed and honoured to have you here. And
Yep, it's quite humbling.
yeah.
Yep. Looking forward to working with you all. We'll see you all very soon.
Yeah.
Ka kite.